expert at Tel Aviv University. Emmanuel, let's first look at the comments by Raisi. There's a lot of assumption the deal is basically done except for the signing, but we hear there is still a key issue under dispute, and that is these inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Yes, and of course this raises the very good question. If there are no inspections, what is the point of a deal? What is the point of an agreement if you cannot verify Iran's illicit activities? So it seems to indicate that either the Iranians or Raisi are not serious about a deal, or he's just trying to improve the deal right before its signature. I think he's also aware of the fact that the United States and many other members of the international community are interested in a deal, among other reasons, to reintroduce Iran in the oil market because, of course, there's a shortage of oil because of the war in Ukraine. So he's aware of the fact that the U.S. and its allies are interested in the economic aspect of the deal, and of course Iran itself wants the sanctions to be lifted. But if he's saying now that he doesn't want the international agency to verify Iran's illicit activities, so, of course, that raises the question, what is the point then of a deal?
Right. Now, let's go to this meeting between Lapid and Netanyahu and the disagreement between them, because this is, look, they both want the same goal, to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon from the U.S. and the international community to go ahead with the deal. But there is a clear difference in the tactics here. Lapid prefers a more diplomatic approach. Netanyahu wants a more public campaign, as he mentioned, in Congress, in the U.S. public opinion. How do you see which side here, maybe they both have a legitimate point?
Well, first of all, they're both running for prime minister, so we are during an electoral campaign.
That certainly has to be.
And that's obviously therefore they're trying to make the case for themselves, saying they're handling this issue better than the opponent. But let us just say very clearly that when Netanyahu says all you have to do is go in Congress and scream about the deal, he did it and it failed. I mean, he spoke in Congress also right before an Israeli elections in March 2015, and 3 months later, the U.S. signed a deal with the Iranians. So he failed to convince the Obama administration at the time. If anything, because Obama was so furious at Netanyahu, he stopped cooperating with Israel and shared the details of the negotiations with Israel. And then when he prided himself of convincing President Trump of withdrawing from the deal, what happened, in fact, is that this actually got Iran to rush towards enrichment much faster than when the deal was in effect. So Netanyahu, in fact,
Netanyahu does claim that he laid the groundwork for the Trump administration moving to pull out of the deal, that he created this kind of
and by doing this, he accelerated Iran's threshold stage, because Iran stopped, applying the deal. And then, of course, in addition, he thought that by imposing tough American sanctions on Iran, this would bring the Iranians to their knees and they would beg for a deal. But that didn't happen. Why? Because the Iranians were able to bypass U.S. sanctions thanks to the Chinese and the Russians. So those sanctions didn't work, actually. So when Netanyahu prides himself of convincing the Trump administration of pulling out of the deal, this, in fact, actually pushed Iran faster towards the enrichment of uranium and got it closer to where it is today.
Right. Briefly, is it too late for this deal to be stopped, or for even with the parties themselves not to come to an agreement after what we heard from Raisi today?
The truth of the matter is that it doesn't really matter, because whether or not there is a deal, Iran is already a threshold country. I mean, it is already very close to the ability of building a bomb, whether or not this deal is being signed. And I think therefore, at this point, instead of arguing about who did a better job or whether or not this deal is going to be signed, Israel should be thinking about the strategy of the day after and coordinate the strategy with its allies, especially with the United States.
Right. Sort of the plan B there. Dr. Emmanuel Navonon, thank you for that.
Thank you.